In Q&A 412, Kubo confirms that Shunpo, or what is known as flash step, is not a teleportation technique, but rather a movement technique. Which I assume most people knew, but I guess in earlier Bleach, like, the after images probably confused a lot of people. Yet, to me, the after images is what gives it away as a movement technique, because if it was pure teleportation, there would be no after images. And yes, you can get snatched out of it if your opponent is faster than you. Now I want to kind of talk about the other movement techniques, like the Arankar's movement technique known as Sonido, which is Spanish for sound.
Shunpo is very similar to Sonido. However, in the anime, they both have different visual and sound cues. It really just helps to differentiate between the two. Shunpo makes sort of like a swish sound, and like Sonido kind of makes like a static sound. It's kind of hard to explain. Go look it up.
But hey, I'm gonna give you my attempt. For Shunpo, it goes like shh, shh, and Sonido goes like bzz, bzz. But at base, you really can't tell the difference between the speeds of Sonido and Shunpo unless a master is using it. Although Shunpo is in most cases described as being more fluid and more controlled and smooth, and Sonido is supposed to be like a more raw boost of energy. A more raw boost of just speed. When you get to masters of like both Sonido and masters of Shunpo, you really can't tell the difference.
Apparently, Sonido allows you to hide your Reatsu while you use it, but it's also louder than Shunpo, so whether it's more stealthy or not is up for debate.
Now we'll get into the Quincy's Hirenkyaku, which pretty much translates to flying screen step. Hirenkyaku is actually way different from Sonido and Shunpo. Hirenkyaku involves the Quincy's using the environment's reishi to make a screen of like reishi that they step on, and they can like use it to slide at ridiculous speeds. However, since Hirenkyaku uses the reishi of the surrounding environment, it works less good in Karakura Town than it does in like Wako Mundo, Soul Society, you know, Wanden, etc. It pretty much just works better in areas with more reishi. So in some cases, where there is an abundance of reishi and the user is very good at this technique, Hirenkyaku is debatably the fastest movement technique. And now we'll get on to Bringer Light, which is the Fullbringer's movement technique. And arguably, at base, is probably the worst movement technique. It essentially involves the Fullbringer dragging their body through space by, like, grabbing a soul, an item. Because, you know, Fullbringers manipulate souls, so they essentially anchor themselves to a soul and pull on it really hard. If I was to go ahead and rank all of them, I would go ahead and say Sonido 1, Shunpo 2, Hirenkyaku 3, and Bringer Light at 4, far behind the rest. I take Sonido just because of the, like, Reatsu disappearing when you use it, so it's more stealthy in that sense. But otherwise, it's pretty equivalent to Shunpo. But the reason I put Hirenkyaku at 3rd is because it can really be slower or faster depending where you're at. But let me know what you guys think down below.